So, what does it really mean to have faith? About 700 years ago, one of the most brilliant thinkers in Islamic history, a scholar named Ibn Taymiyya, gave an answer that was so powerful it didn't just settle a huge debate, it continues to shape how millions of people think about belief today. So, let's dive in and break down his big idea.
First, let's start with a question that everyone, at some point, probably thinks about. What is faith? I mean, is it just this internal feeling you have in your heart? Is it about what you say you believe? Or does it all come down to your actions, what you actually do? This isn't just some abstract thought experiment. The answer to this question really gets to the core of a person's identity. So, back in the 14th century, this is the exact question that Ibn Taymiyya decided to tackle head-on. He wrote this major work called Kitab al-Iman, which just means the Book of Faith. And in it, he set out to find a clear, definitive answer that could hopefully put an end to a furious debate that was basically splitting the community apart.
Now, to really get why his work was such a big deal, you have to understand the world he was stepping into. It was like a theological battleground. He wasn't just writing in a vacuum. He was responding directly to two really powerful and totally opposite schools of thought.
The whole fight really boiled down to one single critical question. What is the relationship between what we call Iman, or faith, and amal, which means action? Could you be a true believer but still mess up and commit major sins? The answer had huge real-world consequences. It could determine whether you were seen as part of the community or as a total outcast. So this debate created two camps at opposite ends of the spectrum. On one side, you had the Murji'a. They were, you could say, pretty lenient. For them, faith was all about what's in your heart. They argued that as long as you truly believed, your actions, even big sins, didn't really affect your status as a believer. But then on the other extreme, you had the Khawarij, and they were incredibly strict. For them, committing just one major sin was enough to completely cancel out your faith. Poof, you were out.
And it's into this incredibly polarized environment that Ibn Taymiyya steps in. He looked at both extremes and said, nope, you're both missing the point. Instead, he came up with this brilliant, comprehensive synthesis, a middle way that brought everything together into one holistic definition of faith.
His whole idea starts with his really simple but profound sentence. Faith, or Iman, is both a statement and an action. He was arguing that you just can't separate the two. They aren't different categories. They're basically two sides of the very same coin.
For Ibn Taymiyya, faith is kind of like a three-legged stool. It needs all three legs to be stable. The first leg is the conviction of the heart, that silent internal belief that nobody else can see. The second leg is the profession by the tongue, actually saying it out loud. And the third, crucial leg, is the action of the limbs, proving that belief through your deeds and how you live your life.
And this is the absolute core of his argument. Faith isn't just one of those things. It's not a buffet where you can pick and choose. It's the whole package. It's a composite reality. If any one of those pieces is missing, if your actions don't line up with your words, or if your words don't reflect what's in your heart, then in his view, your faith is fundamentally incomplete.
Okay, so if you accept this three-part definition, it leads to a really radical idea. If faith is tied to your actions, then it can't possibly be some static, unchanging thing, right? It has to be something that moves, something dynamic.
Exactly. For him, faith is not some binary on-off switch. You're not just a believer or a non-believer, full stop. He saw it more like a spiritual muscle, or maybe a volume dial. It's a quality that can increase and decrease. It ebbs and flows throughout your life depending on your choices.
So how does that work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. When you do good things, acts of obedience, prayer, charity, kindness, your faith gets stronger. It increases. The volume goes up. And on the flip side, when you do things you're not supposed to, acts of disobedience or sin, your faith gets weaker. It decreases. It's in a constant state of flux, shaped by the life you lead.
Which brings us to our final question. Why are we talking about a 700-year-old theological idea today? I mean, why does this still matter? Well, its legacy is actually huge, both in history and for us right now.
So for one, his definition offered this elegant middle path that actually resolved that bitter conflict between the Murji'a and the Khawarij. That was a massive achievement. But maybe even more importantly, it created this unbreakable link between a person's inner belief and their outer actions. And that holistic view is still a cornerstone of Islamic thought today, framing the entire conversation around what it means to live a righteous life.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. Ibn Taymiyya was dealing with a very specific problem from his time, but the question at its heart is totally universal.
Think about it. In our world, which is so full of different ideologies and value systems, how do we tell what's authentic? How does the gap, or the harmony, between what we say we believe and what we actually do define who we are? It's a question that's as relevant today as it was 700 years ago.